Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The knocking started at 5 in the morning. Andrew Marin woke to the sound of fists pounding against wood. His eyes snapped open in the darkness, his body already moving before his mind caught up. The red numbers on the alarm clock glowed 5:03. Rain drummed against the bedroom window, steady and cold. The knocking came again. Harder this time. He pushed himself out of bed and grabbed the jeans from the chair. The fabric was stiff and cold against his skin. Behind him, Avery stirred under the blankets but didn't wake. Her breathing stayed even undisturbed. Andrew moved through the house without turning on lights. His feet knew every creak in the hallway, every loose board near the kitchen. 14 years in this house had taught him that much. The knocking continued, frantic now, like someone was trying to break through. He flipped the porch light and pulled the door open. Liam Corbett stood on the other side, soaked through. Water ran from his hair down his face. His jacket hung heavy with rain. His eyes were red, the kind of red that came from crying or not sleeping or both. Andrew. Liam's voice cracked. Andrew, don't go to work today. Andrew stared at him. Liam lived 3 houses down, had been his neighbor for 8 years. They used to share beers on weekends, back when things were simpler. Back before Liam's wife left and the drinking started. What are you talking about? Please. Liam stepped closer. His breath fogged in the cold morning air. Just trust me. Don't go in today. Liam, it's 5 in the morning. You're drunk. I'm not. Liam grabbed the doorframe to steady himself. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he wasn't. Andrew couldn't tell anymore. You'll understand by noon. I can't say more than that. I can't. But please stay home. Andrew felt something cold move through his chest. Not fear exactly. Something else. What's going on? I can't tell you. Liam's hand shook against the wood. If I tell you, they'll know I told you. Just don't go. Please. Who will know? Liam's mouth opened. Closed. He shook his head and stepped back into the rain. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Andrew. Just stay home. He turned and walked away, his shoulders hunched against the weather. Andrew watched him disappear into the darkness between streetlights. The rain kept falling. What the hell was that about? Andrew turned. Avery stood in the hallway, wrapped in her robe. Her hair was pulled back, her face tight with irritation. She looked at him like he'd done something wrong by answering the door. Liam, Andrew said. He told me not to go to work. He's drunk. Avery walked past him and shut the door. The lock clicked into place. He's always drunk now. You know that. He seemed scared. He's pathetic. She moved to the kitchen and filled a glass with water. Don't start listening to him, Andrew. That man hasn't made sense in 2 years. Andrew stood in the living room, water from the door still pooling on the floor. Something in Avery's voice bothered him. Not what she said, but how she said it. Too quick, too sharp. Like she needed him to dismiss Liam right now, immediately, without thinking about it. He said I'd understand by noon. Avery drank her water and set the glass down hard. Then you'll understand by noon. Until then, you have a job to go to. Bills don't pay themselves. She walked back to the bedroom. Andrew heard the door close, heard the bed creak as she got back in. He stood in the dark living room and listened to the rain. Something was wrong. He couldn't name it, couldn't point to it, but it sat in his gut like a stone. Liam's face kept coming back to him. Those red eyes, that shaking voice, the way he'd apologized. Andrew went to the window and looked out at the street. Empty, dark, rain running down the gutters. Liam's house sat 3 doors down, all the lights off now. Andrew wondered what his neighbor knew, what he couldn't say. He checked his phone. No messages, no missed calls, nothing unusual. At 6:30, Andrew made coffee and got ready for work. He showered, dressed, packed his lunch. The whole time, Liam's words played in his head. Don't go to work today. You'll understand by noon. Avery came into the kitchen at 7, already dressed for her job at the insurance office. She poured herself coffee and didn't look at him. You're still going in? She asked. Have to. We're short-staffed this week. Right. She added cream to her mug, stirred it slowly. Liam's probably just trying to get attention. You know how he gets. Andrew studied her face. She kept her eyes on her coffee, on the counter, on anything but him. That bothered him too. Avery always looked at people when she talked to them. It was one of her things, one of the ways she made people trust her. Maybe, Andrew said. He grabbed his keys and his lunch bag. Avery followed him to the door. Be safe, she said. The words felt wrong. She'd never told him to be safe before. Not once in 14 years. Andrew turned to look at her, but she'd already moved back to the kitchen. He drove to the metal fabrication plant through rain that wouldn't quit. The streets were empty, the sky dark gray. His truck's wipers beat back and forth, back and forth. The radio played some song he didn't know. The plant sat on the east side of Greenville, a squat building surrounded by chain-link fence. Andrew pulled into the parking lot at 7:40. His crew would start at 8. He'd have time to check yesterday's work orders, make sure everything was ready. But Liam's words kept chewing at him. Don't go. You'll understand by noon. Andrew sat in his truck with the engine running. Rain hammered the roof. He looked at the plant entrance, at the lights burning inside, at the other trucks starting to arrive. His crew, men he worked with every day. Good men. He pulled out his phone and called his supervisor. Yeah. Ray's voice was rough with sleep. It's Andrew. I'm not feeling good. Need to take a sick day. Silence. Then Ray said, You never take sick days. First time for everything. You sure? We're behind on the Morrison order. I'm sure. Another pause. All right. Feel better. Andrew ended the call and sat there. He didn't know why he'd done it. Didn't know why he'd listened to Liam. But something in his bones told him to stay away. So he did. He drove home slowly. The rain eased up, turning to drizzle. He pulled into his driveway at 8:15 and went inside. The house was empty. Avery had left for work. Andrew made more coffee and sat at the kitchen table. He watched the clock, watched the minutes crawl toward noon. At 9, he called Liam. No answer. At 10, he tried again. Still nothing. At 11:30, his phone rang. The number on the screen belonged to Tom Vickers, one of the welders on his crew. Andrew answered. Yeah. Andrew. Tom's voice was breaking. Andrew, there was an explosion. The world stopped. What? At the plant. About 20 minutes ago. In the main fabrication room. Tom was crying now. Andrew could hear it. 2 guys are dead. Mike and Robertson. They're dead, Andrew. Andrew's hand tightened on the phone. Mike Patterson. Ed Robertson. He'd worked with both of them for years. Good men. Family men. What happened? Gas leak, they think. Something with the cutting torch. The whole east wall blew out. Tom's voice dissolved into sobs. You were supposed to be there. You were supposed to be in that room. Andrew stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. I called in sick. I know. Ray told me. If you'd been there. Tom couldn't finish. Andrew walked to the window. The street looked normal. Quiet. Like the world hadn't just broken apart. Who else was hurt? 3 others. Burns, mostly. They took them to the hospital. I'm coming in. Don't. The fire department won't let anyone inside. Police are here too. It's bad, Andrew. They talked for another minute, but Andrew barely heard it. His mind kept showing him that fabrication room. The layout. Where he would have been standing. Right where Mike and Robertson died. Liam knew. Somehow, Liam knew there would be an explosion before noon. Knew enough to warn him. Knew enough to save his life. Andrew ended the call and sat back down. His hands were shaking. He stared at them, at the calluses and scars from 14 years of factory work, and tried to understand. The front door opened at 5:30. Avery came in carrying her purse and a bag from the grocery store. She set everything on the counter and looked at him. You're home early, she said. I was home all day. Her eyes narrowed. What? There was an explosion at the plant. 2 men died. Avery went very still. Her face didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. She put her hands on the counter, fingers spread wide. When? Around 11. I wasn't there. Why not? Andrew watched her carefully. I called in sick. She nodded slowly, picked up the grocery bag, started putting things away in the refrigerator. Her movements were mechanical, precise. That's lucky, she said. Yeah. So they'll shut down for a while, I guess. Investigation and all that. Andrew kept watching her, kept waiting for her to ask who died, kept waiting for her to show something, anything, that looked like normal human concern. She closed the refrigerator and turned to him. They'll pay you during the shutdown, right? Some kind of insurance or something? The cold thing in Andrew's chest turned to ice. That's your first question? His voice came out flat, dead. 2 men are dead, and you want to know about insurance money? Avery blinked. I didn't mean it like that. We have bills, Andrew. I was just thinking about. Who died? He stood up. Do you even want to know their names? Of course I do. Then why didn't you ask? She opened her mouth, closed it. Her face rearranged itself into something softer, something that might have been sympathy if he didn't know better. You're right. I'm sorry. Who was it? But it was too late. He'd seen it. That first reaction, that calculation in her eyes. Not grief, not shock, just numbers, just money. Mike and Robertson, Andrew said. That's terrible. Avery moved toward him, reached out to touch his arm. You must be devastated. He stepped back. Her hand fell to her side. I'm going for a drive, Andrew said. He left before she could respond. Andrew drove with no destination, just movement. The streets of Greenville passed by, familiar and strange at the same time. Everything looked different now. Everything felt tilted. His phone rang again. Ray this time, calling to tell him the plant would be closed for at least 2 weeks while investigators figured out what happened. Then Tom called again, crying harder, talking about Mike's kids and how they'd have to plan a funeral. Then other crew members, all saying the same things in different words. Andrew listened to all of them, gave them the right responses, but his mind was somewhere else. On Liam's face at 5 in the morning. On Avery's voice asking about insurance. On the fact that he should be dead right now, and he wasn't, and someone had known it was coming. He drove until the sun went down, then drove some more. When he finally went home, it was after 10. The house was dark except for the bedroom light. Avery was already in bed. Andrew sat in his truck and stared at his own front door. This house, this life, something about all of it felt like a lie now, like someone had pulled back a curtain he hadn't known was there. He went inside and slept on the couch. The next morning, Friday, the knocking came again. This time it was 7. Andrew was already awake, had been for hours. He opened the door before Liam could knock a second time. Liam looked different, sober. His eyes were clear, but his face was pale and drawn. He'd lost weight in just 2 days, or maybe Andrew just hadn't noticed before. Can I come in? Andrew stepped aside. Liam walked to the living room, but didn't sit. He stood by the window, looking out at the street like he expected someone to be watching. His hands were shaking again, but not from alcohol this time. Andrew, Liam said, that explosion wasn't an accident. The words hung in the air. Andrew closed the door and locked it. What are you talking about? I heard them. Liam turned away from the window. His face was gray. A few days ago, I couldn't sleep, so I was sitting on my porch. Around 3 in the morning. I heard voices coming from your backyard. Andrew's jaw tightened. Who? Avery. Liam's voice dropped to almost a whisper. And a man? I didn't recognize his voice. They were arguing, trying to keep it quiet, but not quiet enough. About what? Liam swallowed hard. About you. About the plant. I heard your name. I heard the word insurance. I heard her say something about it being better if you were gone. The room felt smaller, darker. Andrew's hands curled into fists. You're sure? I'm sure. Liam's eyes were wet now. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself I was drunk, that I'd misheard. But then I saw her meet with the same guy 2 more times. At that coffee shop on 5th Street. Yesterday I followed them. The man, he's her brother. Nate Harlan. Avery's younger brother. The one who'd been in prison for fraud. The one who'd gotten out 6 months ago. Andrew had never liked him, had told Avery to keep him away from their house. She'd agreed. She'd promised. She lied, Andrew said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, like it belonged to someone else. She's been seeing him behind my back. More than that. Liam took a step closer. Andrew, I think they were planning something. I think they did something to cause that explosion. To make sure you'd be there. Andrew's mind raced. The explosion. Mike and Robertson dead. The gas leak that investigators were already calling suspicious. Why would she want me dead? Insurance money. Liam's voice cracked. I heard her talking about some policy. Said it would set them both up. Her and Nate. Andrew turned and walked to the kitchen. He braced his hands on the counter and stared at nothing. His whole body felt like stone, hard and cold and ready to break. Avery wanted him dead. His wife of 14 years had tried to kill him for insurance money. and she'd gotten 2 other men killed instead. Why didn't you call the police? Andrew asked. Because I don't have proof. Just what I heard. Liam followed him to the kitchen. And because I thought maybe I could warn you first. Give you a chance to figure out yourself. Get evidence. Andrew looked at him. Really looked at him. Liam's hands were still shaking. His eyes were desperate and guilty at the same time. You could have told me on Thursday morning. You could have explained. I know. Liam's voice broke. I know, and I'm sorry. I was afraid. I thought maybe if you just stayed home, that would be enough. That they'd give up. He wiped his face. I was wrong. I should have told you everything right away. Mike and Robertson. That's on me too. No. Andrew's voice was hard as iron. That's on Avery. That's on Nate. Not you. Liam looked like he might fall apart. Andrew moved past him back to the living room. His mind was working now, clear and cold. The shock was gone. What remained was something sharper. Colder. Avery wanted him dead. Fine. Now he knew. And now he was going to do something about it. Thank you, Andrew said, for warning me, for telling me this. What are you going to do? I'm going to get proof. Andrew opened the front door. And then I'm going to make sure she pays for what she did. Liam nodded and walked out. Andrew watched him go, then closed the door and stood in his living room. The same living room where he'd sat with Avery hundreds of times, where they'd watched movies and argued about paint colors and talked about maybe having kids someday. All of it a lie. Andrew pulled out his phone and started researching. By noon, he had a plan. The smoke detector in the living room had been there for 9 years. Andrew took it down on Saturday afternoon while Avery was at the grocery store. Inside the white plastic casing, he installed the smallest camera he could find. The salesman at the electronics store had asked what it was for. Andrew told him home security. The man hadn't asked any more questions. The camera was the size of a quarter, black and nearly invisible once installed. It connected to an app on Andrew's phone. He could watch live or review footage later. The battery would last a week before needing a charge. Andrew put the smoke detector back on the ceiling and tested the camera. Perfect angle. It covered the couch, the front door, and most of the kitchen. Anywhere Avery might make a phone call or have a conversation. He deleted the app from his home screen and buried it in a folder labeled Work Files. Then he cleaned up and waited. Avery came home at 4 carrying 3 bags of groceries. She smiled at him when she walked in. The same smile she'd given him for 14 years. It made his stomach turn. Can you help me with these? She asked. Andrew took 2 bags and followed her to the kitchen. They put everything away together, moving around each other in the familiar dance of shared space. She talked about her day at work, about some client who couldn't understand their policy terms, about traffic on the way to the store. Normal conversation. Normal life. Like she hadn't tried to kill him 3 days ago. Andrew made dinner while Avery set the table. Chicken and rice, something simple. They ate across from each other. The TV played in the background, some news program Avery liked. So, when does the plant reopen? She asked. 2 weeks, maybe longer. And they're still paying you? Yeah, disaster leave. She nodded and cut her chicken into small pieces. That's good. We need the money. Andrew watched her eat. Watched the way she moved her fork, the way she chewed, the way she reached for her water glass. Every gesture familiar. Every gesture now suspect. Have you talked to your brother lately? He asked. Avery looked up. Her face stayed neutral, but her hand paused for just a second before setting down her fork. Nate? No. Why? Just wondering. Hasn't been around since he got out. He's trying to stay clean. Start over. She took a drink. I think he's working construction now. Up in Raleigh. Lie. Liam had seen them together yesterday. Lie after lie after lie. That's good, Andrew said. He deserves a fresh start. They finished dinner. Avery did the dishes while Andrew pretended to watch TV. He kept his phone in his pocket, the camera app running. Nothing yet. Just normal evening sounds. Water running, plates clinking, Avery humming some tune he didn't recognize. She went to bed at 10. Andrew waited until he heard her breathing go steady. Then he pulled out his phone and reviewed the footage from earlier. Nothing useful. Just Avery moving around the house, reading a magazine, checking her own phone. He'd have to be patient. Sunday passed the same way. Avery went to church in the morning, something she'd started doing 6 months ago. Andrew stayed home and watched the camera feed. Nothing happened. She came back at noon, and they ate lunch together. Normal, quiet, but Monday was different. Andrew told Avery he was going to the hardware store to pick up supplies for some repairs around the house. She nodded and said she'd be home all day. He kissed her cheek and left. He didn't go to the hardware store. He drove 2 blocks away and parked. Then he opened the camera app on his phone and watched. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Avery moved around the house, cleaned the kitchen, folded laundry. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen, and her whole posture changed. She glanced toward the door, then answered. "I told you not to call me here." Her voice was low, tense. What if he was home? Andrew's grip tightened on his phone. No, he went out. Hardware store. We have maybe an hour. She paced across the living room, right in the camera's view. He's starting to suspect something. I can tell. He keeps asking about you. Silence while the other person talked. I don't know, Nate. I don't know what to do. Avery's voice cracked. 2 men died. 2. That wasn't supposed to happen. More silence. He wasn't supposed to call in sick. He never calls in sick. You said it would look like an accident, that no one would question it. She ran her hand through her hair. Now there's an investigation. Police asking questions. What if they figure it out? Andrew's blood went cold. They did it. They really did it. The insurance policy is useless now. They won't pay out unless he dies in the next 6 months, and there's no way we can try again. Avery sat down on the couch, her back to the camera. I can't live like this anymore. I can't be married to him. He's miserable. He makes me miserable. The other person spoke again. Avery listened, then shook her head. No, no more plans. I just want out. Her voice dropped even lower. But the insurance would have helped us both start over. You need the money. I need the money. It was supposed to work. Another pause. I have to go. He'll be back soon. She ended the call and sat there for a moment, staring at nothing. Then she got up and went to the bedroom. Andrew sat in his truck and watched the footage again, and again, and again. His wife admitting to attempted murder. His wife admitting to killing 2 innocent men. His wife talking about insurance money like it was the only thing that mattered. He saved the video to 3 different locations. His phone, his laptop, a cloud storage account under a fake name. Then he opened a new app and started recording every call that came to Avery's phone. Legal in North Carolina, if one party consented. He was one party now. Over the next 3 days, Andrew built his case. He tracked Avery's movements when she left the house. Followed her to the coffee shop on 5th Street where she met Nate twice. Andrew took photos from his truck, careful to stay hidden. Nate looked the same as he always had. Thin face, nervous energy, eyes that never stopped moving. They sat at a corner table and talked with their heads close together. Andrew couldn't hear what they said, but he took pictures of them together. Proof they'd been meeting. He pulled their phone records. Avery was on a cell plan, so he had access. The records showed dozens of calls between her and a number he didn't recognize. He ran the number through a reverse lookup. It came back to a prepaid phone purchased at a gas station in Rocky Mount. That would be Nate's phone. Untraceable, disposable. Smart, but not smart enough. Andrew called his insurance company and asked about his policy. The woman on the phone was happy to help. Yes, there had been a recent change. His accidental death benefit had been increased from $200,000 to $700,000. The change was requested 8 months ago by his wife, who was listed as the account manager. Did I authorize that? Andrew asked. The woman paused. According to our records, yes. There's a signature here. Can you email me a copy of that form? Of course. The form arrived in his inbox 10 minutes later. Andrew opened it and stared at the signature line. His name signed in handwriting that looked like his, but wasn't quite right. Close enough to fool a busy insurance employee. Not close enough to fool him. Forgery. Insurance fraud. Attempted murder. Actual murder. The case built itself piece by piece. Andrew worked methodically, carefully. He'd been a foreman for 10 years because he paid attention to details. Because he caught problems before they became disasters. Now he used those same skills to catch his wife. On Thursday night, Avery's phone rang again while Andrew was supposedly asleep. He listened to the recording later. We need to talk in person, Nate said. This is getting too hot. I know. Avery's voice was tight. But we can't meet anymore. What if someone sees us? Then come to my place. That motel on Route 58. Room 14. When? Tomorrow night. After he goes to bed. Fine. Andrew saved the recording and checked the time. He had one day to prepare. Friday afternoon. He told Avery he was meeting some guys from work for drinks. She barely looked up from her phone. Okay, don't stay out too late. He left at 6 and drove straight to Liam's house. Liam answered on the first knock. He looked better than he had a week ago. Cleaner. More focused. Andrew? What's wrong? I need your help. They sat in Liam's kitchen. Andrew showed him everything. The video of Avery's phone call. The photos of her meeting Nate. The insurance paperwork with a forged signature. The phone records. Liam's face went pale. Jesus Christ. I'm going to confront Nate tonight. I want you to come with me. As a witness. Shouldn't you just go to the police? I need him to confess first. On record. If I hand this to the cops now, they'll investigate, but a good lawyer might get them off. Nate could claim he didn't know about the explosion. Avery could say she was just talking fantasy, not reality. Andrew leaned forward. But if I get Nate to admit what they did, there's no room for doubt. Liam nodded slowly. You want me there so he can't claim you beat out of him or something. Exactly. Where are we meeting him? Behind the old hardware store on Jefferson Street. I'll call him from a burner phone. Tell him I know everything and I want to talk. Just him and me. And if he doesn't show, he'll show. He's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. They left at 8. Andrew drove to a convenience store and bought a prepaid phone with cash. Then they parked behind the closed hardware store and waited. The lot was empty, just cracked pavement and a dumpster. No cameras. No witnesses except Liam. Andrew activated the phone and dialed Nate's number. It rang 4 times before someone answered. Yeah. Nate's voice was wary. It's Andrew. Silence. Then, where did you get this number? Doesn't matter. I know what you and Avery did. I know about the explosion. I know about the insurance policy. More silence. Andrew could hear breathing on the other end, fast and shallow. I don't know what you're talking about, Nate said. Yes, you do. And you're going to meet me tonight so we can discuss it. Behind the hardware store on Jefferson Street. Just you and me. No police. Not yet. You're bluffing. I have video of Avery talking about it. I have your phone records. I have the forged insurance documents. Andrew's voice was cold and steady. I have everything, Nate. The only question is whether you want to deal with me or deal with the cops. Another long silence. What do you want? Nate asked finally. To hear you say it. To hear you admit what you did. Then we'll talk about what happens next. This is a trap. No trap. Just the truth. Be here in 30 minutes. Andrew ended the call and tossed the burner phone out the window. It clattered across the pavement and disappeared under the dumpster. Liam looked at him. You really think he'll come? He'll come. He needs to know what I have on him. They waited. 20 minutes passed. Then headlights turned into the lot. A gray sedan pulled up and stopped 20 feet away. The engine died. The door opened. Nate Harlan stepped out. He looked worse than in the photos. Thinner. Older. His clothes hung loose on his frame. He walked toward Andrew's truck slowly, hands visible, eyes darting around the empty lot. Andrew got out. Liam stayed in the passenger seat, his phone out, recording everything. Andrew, Nate said. He tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. Look, man, I think there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Andrew pulled out his phone and opened the video. Watch. He held the screen toward Nate. The footage played. Avery's voice filled the quiet parking lot. I can't live like this anymore. I can't be married to him. The insurance would have helped us both start over. Nate's face went white. I have more, Andrew said. Hours of recordings. Photos of you two meeting. Phone records. The forged insurance paperwork. He put his phone away. I have everything. Nate's hands curled into fists. It was Avery's idea. All of it. She said you'd never let her go. She said you'd fight a divorce, drag it out, cost her everything. So she decided to kill me instead? She said it would look like an accident, that no one would question it. Nate ran his hand over his face. I needed the money. I owe people. Bad people. When I got out, they found me. Said I had to pay what I owed or they'd kill me. His voice cracked. I didn't have a choice. You had a choice. You could have said no. You could have gone to the police. And tell them what? That my sister wanted to kill her husband. Nate laughed, bitter and harsh. They'd have locked me up just for knowing about it. They're going to lock you up anyway. Andrew stepped closer. 2 men are dead because of what you did. Mike Patterson had 3 kids. Ed Robertson was 3 years from retirement. They died because of your greed. I didn't know they'd be there. I didn't know anyone else would be in that room. Nate's eyes were wet now. That part wasn't supposed to happen. But it did happen. And now you're going to tell the police everything. Nate backed away. No way. I'm not going to prison again. You don't have a choice. Andrew pulled out another phone, his regular one, and held it up. I've been recording this conversation. You just admitted to attempted murder and conspiracy. You just confessed. Nate's face twisted into something ugly. You bastard. Tell me how you did it. Tell me how you caused the explosion. Go to hell. Tell me, or I send all of this to the police right now. Tell me, and maybe I give you a chance to turn yourself in. Show some remorse. It might help your sentencing. Nate stared at him. His chest heaved. His eyes darted to his car, measuring the distance. Don't run, Andrew said quietly. There's nowhere to go. The fight drained out of Nate all at once. His shoulders slumped. Gas line. I went to the plant 3 days before the explosion. Avery got me a temporary contractor pass using a fake company name. I cut a small hole in the line feeding the main fabrication room. Small enough it wouldn't leak much at first, but would get worse over time. He wiped his eyes. I thought it would blow during first shift on Thursday when you'd be there, when Mike and Robertson would be somewhere else. But I called in sick. Yeah, and they were there instead. Nate's voice broke. I didn't mean for them to die. I swear, I didn't mean it. Andrew felt nothing. No anger. No pity. Just cold determination. You're going to tell all of this to Detective Mara Ridley at the Greenville Police Department. Tomorrow morning. I'll be there too. And if I don't, then I release everything I have to the media and the police and anyone else who will listen. Your name, your confession, all of it. At least if you turn yourself in, you might get a deal. Nate looked at the ground, at the sky, at anything but Andrew. Then he nodded. Okay, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., don't be late. Nate walked back to his car and got in. The engine started. The sedan backed up and drove away, taillights disappearing into the night. Liam got out of the truck. You got all of that? Every word. What about Avery? She's next. They drove back to Andrew Street. Liam went home. Andrew sat in his truck outside his own house and looked at the lights burning in the windows. Avery was in there right now, thinking she was safe, thinking she'd gotten away with it. She hadn't. Andrew got out and walked to the front door. It was locked. He used his key and went inside. Avery was on the couch, watching TV. She looked up when he came in. You're home early. I thought you'd be out later. Change of plans. He sat in the chair across from her. His face felt strange, like it belonged to someone else. Like he'd put on a mask and couldn't take it off. There's something I need to tell you, Andrew said. Avery muted the TV. What's wrong? I know what you did. I know about Nate. I know about the explosion. I know about the insurance policy. His voice was flat, emotionless. I know everything. The color drained from her face. Her mouth opened, closed. Her hands gripped the edge of the couch. Andrew, I don't. Don't lie. He pulled out his phone and showed her the video. The one of her talking to Nate. The one where she admitted to everything. Avery watched the screen. Her face went from pale to gray. When the video ended, she looked at him. How long have you known? A week. And you've been watching me. Recording me. Yes. She stood up, her hands shaking. Andrew, please. Let me explain. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You tried to kill me for insurance money. You and Nate cut the gas line at my plant. You got 2 men killed. No. She shook her head frantically. No, it wasn't like that. I was angry. I was upset. I said things I didn't mean. But I never actually wanted you dead. I never. You forged my signature on insurance paperwork 8 months ago. You increased the death benefit to $700,000. You planned this. Andrew stood up. And tomorrow morning, you're going to tell that to the police. I won't. I'll tell them you made this up. That you edited those videos. I have Nate's confession. Recorded tonight. He explained everything. How you got him the contractor pass. How he cut the gas line. How it was your idea from the beginning. Avery's face crumpled. Please. Andrew, please. We can work this out. We can go to marriage counseling. We can start over. No. The word came out hard and final. There's no starting over. There's no forgiveness. You killed 2 innocent men. You tried to kill me. That's not something I can ever forget or forgive. I'm your wife. Not anymore. She moved toward him, reaching out. Andrew, don't touch me. She stopped. Tears ran down her face. What are you going to do? I already called the police. They'll be here in 10 minutes. You called them? Before even talking to me? I talked to Nate first. He'll be at the station tomorrow to give his full confession. But I wanted to give you a chance to hear it from me first. To know that I'm not the fool you thought I was. Avery sank back onto the couch. Her whole body shook. This will ruin my life. You ruined your own life. And you tried to ruin mine. The sirens started in the distance, growing louder. Avery looked toward the door, then back at Andrew. I loved you once. In the beginning. Maybe. But love turns into something else when you water it with lies. The red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Car doors slammed. Heavy footsteps on the porch. Then knocking. Andrew opened the door. Detective Mara Ridley stood there, 2 uniformed officers behind her. She was in her 40s, with tired eyes and a no-nonsense expression. Andrew Marin? That's me. I understand you have information about the explosion at the metal fabrication plant. I do. My wife, Avery Marin, and her brother, Nate Harlan, conspired to cause that explosion in an attempt to kill me for insurance money. I have video evidence, phone records, and a recorded confession from Nate Harlan. Detective Ridley looked past him into the house. Is your wife here? She's in the living room. The detective stepped inside. She saw Avery on the couch and nodded to the officers. Avery Marin, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and felony murder. Felony murder? Avery looked confused. 2 men died during the commission of your felony. That makes you guilty of their deaths under state law. Detective Ridley pulled out handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. The words faded into background noise. Andrew watched the officers put Avery in handcuffs. Watched them walk her to the door. She looked back at him once, her face a mess of tears and makeup. You think you're innocent? She said. Her voice was sharp now, cutting. You think they'll believe you didn't know? They'll believe the video, Andrew said. They'll believe what they can see and hear. You destroyed me. You destroyed yourself. They took her outside. Andrew stood in his doorway and watched them put her in the back of a police car. Across the street, Liam stood on his porch. He raised one hand in a small wave. Andrew nodded back. Detective Ridley stayed behind. I'll need you to come to the station tomorrow morning. Bring everything you have. I will. Nate Harlan will be there too. 9 a.m. He's going to confess. Good. She looked at him carefully. Most people fall apart after something like this. You seem calm. I fell apart a week ago when I found out. This is what comes after. She nodded and left. Andrew closed the door and stood in his empty house. The TV was still on, still playing some show he didn't recognize. He turned it off. The silence was complete. He'd won. He'd caught them. He made sure they'd pay for what they'd done. But standing there in the dark, Andrew didn't feel like a winner. He felt like someone who'd survived a war he'd never wanted to fight. The trial started 4 months later on a cold February morning. Andrew sat in the courtroom gallery and watched the proceedings like he was watching a movie about someone else's life. The prosecutor was a woman named Janet Kim, mid-30s, sharp-eyed, and relentless. She'd spent months building the case, and now she laid it out piece by piece for the jury. The defendants, Avery Marin and Nate Harlan, conspired to murder Andrew Marin for insurance money, she said during opening arguments. They planned it for months. They forged documents. They sabotaged industrial equipment. In the process, they killed 2 innocent men, Mike Patterson and Ed Robertson. Andrew watched Avery sit at the defense table. She'd lost weight. Her hair was shorter, pulled back in a style that made her look younger and more vulnerable. Her lawyer, a public defender named Morris, had told her to look sympathetic. It wasn't working. Nate sat at a separate table with his own lawyer. He'd confessed everything to the police that morning back in October, just like Andrew had told him to. But his lawyer was still trying to cut a deal, arguing that Nate had been coerced by Avery, that he'd been a tool rather than a mastermind. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution called Andrew to the stand on day 3. He walked to the witness box and swore to tell the truth. Then he told them everything. About Liam's warning, about the explosion, about the video recordings and the forged insurance documents, and the confrontation with Nate behind the hardware store. Avery's lawyer tried to make him look like a bitter husband who'd manufactured evidence. Isn't it true, Mr. Marin, that you've been having marriage problems? No, no problems at all. Not that I knew about. But your wife apparently wanted out. Doesn't that suggest issues you weren't aware of? It suggests she's a liar. Andrew looked directly at Avery. A good one. Good enough to fool me for 14 years. Morris tried again. You claim to have video evidence of my client discussing this alleged plot. But how do we know those videos are real? How do we know you didn't manipulate them? The prosecution had them analyzed by 3 separate forensic experts. All 3 confirmed they're authentic. No edits. No manipulation. Still, you recorded your wife without her knowledge. In her own home. Isn't that a violation of her privacy? North Carolina is a one-party consent state. I was the one party, and I'd rather violate her privacy than let her get away with murder. Morris had no response to that. The prosecution played the videos for the jury. Avery's voice filled the courtroom. I can't be married to him. He's miserable. The insurance would have helped us both start over. 2 men died. That wasn't supposed to happen. Andrew watched the jurors' faces, saw their expressions harden, saw them look at Avery with disgust. Nate took the stand on day 7. His lawyer had advised him to show remorse, to take responsibility. Nate tried. He cried. He apologized. He explained about the debt and the threats and how desperate he'd been. I never meant for anyone to die, he said. I thought Andrew would be alone in that room. I thought it would look like an accident and no one else would get hurt. The prosecutor stood up for cross-examination. But someone did get hurt, Mr. Harlan. 2 people died. Mike Patterson and Ed Robertson. They had families. They had lives. And you took that away from them. I know. I'm sorry. Being sorry doesn't bring them back. She walked closer to him. Tell the jury about the contractor pass. How did you get access to the plant? Avery got it for me. She works for an insurance company. She knows people. She created a fake contracting company and got me a pass under a fake name. So she helped you gain access to commit this crime? Yes. And whose idea was it to cut the gas line? Nate hesitated. His lawyer had told him to take equal blame, to make it seem like a shared plan. But under pressure, the truth came out. Avery's. She found blueprints of the plant online. She showed me where the gas line was. She told me exactly what to do. Avery's lawyer objected. The judge sustained it. But the damage was done. The jury had heard it. Avery took the stand on day 9. Morris had coached her for weeks. She wore a simple dress. No makeup. She looked directly at the jury when she spoke. I never wanted my husband dead, she said. I was angry. I said things I shouldn't have. But I never actually intended for anything to happen. The prosecutor tore her apart. You forged your husband's signature to increase his life insurance policy. True or false? I wanted us to have more coverage, in case something happened. That's not what I asked. Did you forge a signature? Yes or no? Avery looked at her lawyer. Morris nodded. Yes. And did you meet with your brother multiple times to discuss this plan? We talked, but yes or no? Yes. And did your brother gain access to the plant using credentials you helped him obtain? Yes. And did he then sabotage equipment that resulted in an explosion that killed 2 men? That wasn't supposed to. Yes or no, Ms. Marin? Avery's face crumpled. Yes. The prosecutor showed her the video recordings, made her watch herself talking about insurance money and how Andrew being gone would solve all her problems, made her explain each statement, each plan, each lie. By the time Avery left the stand, she looked destroyed. Morris tried to salvage things during redirect, but it was too late. The jury had seen enough. Closing arguments came on day 12. The prosecution went last. Janet Kim stood in front of the jury and spoke clearly. The evidence is overwhelming. The defendants planned to murder Andrew Marin for financial gain. They forged documents. They sabotaged industrial equipment. They showed no regard for human life. And when their plan failed to kill their intended victim, they showed no remorse for the 2 men who died in his place. She paused. Mike Patterson left behind a wife and 3 children. Ed Robertson was 3 years from retirement. They went to work that day expecting to come home. They didn't, because of the defendant's greed and callousness. She looked at Avery and Nate. Justice for Mike. Justice for Ed. Justice for Andrew, who had to live through the nightmare of discovering his wife wanted him dead. That's what you must deliver today. Guilty, on all counts. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, Andrew was sitting in the same seat he'd occupied for 2 weeks. Detective Ridley sat next to him. She'd been there almost every day, watching the trial unfold. "Jury's back," she said quietly. Andrew nodded. He felt nothing. No nervousness. No anticipation. Just the same cold emptiness that had lived in his chest since October. The judge asked the foreperson for the verdict. In the case of the state versus Avery Marin, on the count of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of insurance fraud? Guilty. On 2 counts of felony murder? Guilty. Avery sobbed. Her lawyer put his hand on her shoulder, but she shook him off. She turned in her seat and looked at Andrew. Her face was red and twisted. "Please," she mouthed. Andrew looked away. The judge read Nate's verdicts. All guilty. Then he thanked the jury and dismissed them. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Andrew sat in the same courtroom and listened to the judge explain the terms. Avery Marin was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for conspiracy and fraud, plus 2 concurrent sentences of 15 years each for the felony murders. With the sentences running concurrent, she'd serve 15 years total. Nate Harlan received 17 years. The judge gave him extra time for being the one who physically committed the sabotage. "You both showed a complete disregard for human life," the judge said. "You planned this crime for months. You had multiple opportunities to stop, to reconsider, to do the right thing. You chose greed instead. You chose murder. Now you'll live with those choices." Avery tried to speak. "Your Honor, please. I didn't mean—" "You meant every word, Ms. Marin." The judge looked at her with cold eyes. "The evidence shows that clearly. The video recordings of you discussing this plan in detail. The forged documents. The meetings with your brother. All of it shows intent and premeditation. You are exactly where you belong." They took her away. Andrew watched them walk her out in handcuffs. She looked back at him one last time. Her mouth moved, forming words he couldn't hear. Maybe she was begging. Maybe she was cursing him. He didn't care. Outside the courthouse, Detective Ridley stopped him. Most people would feel something right now. Relief. Satisfaction. Something. "I feel tired," Andrew said. "That's normal. You've been carrying this for months." "Yeah." She studied his face. "You never broke down. Not once during this whole thing. I watched you testify. Watched you sit through the trial. You never showed any emotion. I broke down long before she was caught. This is just the aftermath." Ridley nodded. "What will you do now? Leave? Sell the house? Start over somewhere else? That's probably smart. This town has too many memories." "Yeah." She handed him her card. "If you ever need anything. Or if you just want to talk." Andrew took the card and put it in his pocket. He knew he'd never call her. There was nothing left to say. He went home to the empty house. It had been empty since October, just him and the furniture and the ghost of a life that no longer existed. He'd lived there alone for 5 months, sleeping in the guest room because he couldn't stand to be in the bed he'd share with Avery. Andrew started packing that night. He didn't have much to take. Clothes, some tools, a few photos from before Avery, from when his parents were still alive. Everything else could stay or be sold or thrown away. He didn't care. Liam helped him pack. He'd been sober since October, attending meetings 3 times a week. He'd apologized 100 times for not telling Andrew everything sooner, for not preventing Mike and Ed's deaths. Andrew had told him to stop apologizing. What happened wasn't Liam's fault. "Where will you go?" Liam asked as they loaded boxes into Andrew's truck. "West. Maybe the mountains. Somewhere quiet." "That sounds good." They worked in silence for a while. Then Liam said, "I'm leaving too. Going to stay with my brother in Asheville. Get away from this street." "Good. There's nothing here worth staying for." They finished loading the truck as the sun went down. Andrew looked at the house one last time. 14 years of his life had happened inside those walls. 14 years of lies he hadn't seen coming. He felt nothing looking at it now. Just a building. Just wood and nails and paint. He got in his truck and drove away. The mountains looked different than he remembered. Cleaner. Colder. He found a small cabin to rent outside of Boone, far enough from Greenville that he'd never run into anyone he knew. The cabin was basic. 1 bedroom, a kitchen, a porch that looked out over the valley. Andrew took the job at a small fabrication shop in town. It wasn't much, but it paid enough. The owner didn't ask questions when Andrew handed him a resume with a 5-month gap. Times were hard. Good workers were hard to find. That was enough. He worked. He ate. He slept. He didn't make friends. He didn't date. He just existed, day after day, 1 foot in front of the other. A year passed. In October, exactly 12 months after the explosion, Andrew drove to the county correctional facility where Avery was serving her sentence. He didn't go inside. He didn't request a visit. He just parked in the lot and looked at the building. The facility was gray concrete and chain-link fences and guard towers. Avery was somewhere inside those walls, living in a cell, counting down the days until her release in 14 more years. Maybe she thought about what she'd done. Maybe she didn't. Andrew would never know. He'd told himself he wouldn't come here. Told himself to let it go, to move on, to forget. But he needed to see it. Needed to remind himself that she was in there and he was out here. That he'd survived and she hadn't. His phone rang. Liam. Hey, Andrew answered. Just checking in. You doing okay? Yeah. Where are you? Andrew looked at the prison one more time. Nowhere important. You sound strange. I'm fine. Just thinking. About her. About everything. Liam was quiet for a moment. Are you finally going to let it go, Andrew? Move on. Andrew started the engine. The question hung in the air between them. Could he let it go? Could he forgive? Could he forget what she'd done? What she tried to do? No, I don't forgive, Andrew said. His voice was steady, certain. I remember. That's enough. That's no way to live. Maybe not, but it's my way. He ended the call and pulled out of the parking lot. The prison disappeared in his rearview mirror. Andrew drove north, toward the mountains, toward the cabin that wasn't home but was close enough. The sky was clear. The air was cold. The road stretched out ahead of him, empty and open. He'd lost his wife, his marriage, his trust in people, but he'd kept something more important. His life, his will, his control over his own fate. Avery had tried to take that away. She tried to erase him for money. Instead, she'd erased herself. She'd thrown away everything for greed and ended up with nothing but regret and prison walls. Andrew had won, not the way people usually won, with happiness or peace or closure. He'd won by surviving, by refusing to be broken, by refusing to forgive the people who'd tried to destroy him. That was enough. It had to be. He drove until the sun set behind the mountains. Then he drove some more. The lights of Boone appeared in the distance. His cabin waited. His life waited. Small and quiet and alone, but his. He pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine. Sat there in the dark for a moment. Thought about Mike and Ed and their families. Thought about Avery sitting in a cell. Thought about all the what-ifs and could-have-beens that no longer mattered. Then he got out and went inside. The cabin was cold. He started a fire in the wood stove and made coffee. Sat on the porch and watched the stars come out one by one. The valley below was dark and peaceful. No traffic, no voices, no memories, just silence. Andrew sipped his coffee and felt something close to peace. Not quite, not fully, but close enough. He'd survived. That was what mattered. Everything else was just noise. The fire crackled behind him. The coffee steamed in his hands. The mountains stood eternal and indifferent in the darkness. Andrew sat there until midnight, then went inside and went to bed. Tomorrow would come, and the day after, and the day after that. He'd face each one the same way he'd faced all the days since October, with cold determination, with unshakable will, with the knowledge that he'd been tested and he'd passed. Some people believed in forgiveness, in moving on, in letting go. Andrew believed in something else, in memory, in consequence, in making sure the people who tried to destroy him never got the chance to try again. That belief had kept him alive, had kept him sane, had kept him moving forward when everything else told him to give up. He closed his eyes and fell asleep, dreamless and still.